Welcome to the Gut Mind Collective podcast, a show that helps busy women develop sustainable, nourishing health habits so you feel calmer and more energetic. I'm your host, Merrin Padgett, sharing guided meditations, gut mind health hacks, and interviews to inspire you to put yourself first and lead a purposely healthy life. I am so excited to be joined today by Sarah Yip, who is a professional psychic, blogger, and a mum of three and hails from the Gold Coast in Australia. Sarah helps thousands of people every year discover their purpose, reclaim their self-trust, and heal themselves after massive life shifts like breakups, having kids, or even changing careers. Sarah specialises in 1111 and repeated numbers and palmistry and numerology, which are actual pathways to rapid awakening and family forgiveness. So Sarah's got an amazing background in ethical leadership, fundraising, and personal growth, and she's able to bring you back to the power, to your own power, and reconnect you with your own soul within seconds. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, Merrin. It's so wonderful to be here.
It's awesome to have you. We just had an amazing conversation before hitting record, and I know that we are going to have an awesome chat to share with our listeners as well.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So before we dive deep into all things symbology and 1111, I did get tingles as I said the word 1111 when reading your intro. So thanks for that one. I thought we'd do like a little getting to know you rapid round a bit before the deep dive.
Sure. Yeah.
So, what in your opinion is the most amazing animal?
All right. Well, assuming we can't say humans, I'm going to say sea turtles because I used to work in sea turtle conservation. So we also call them marine turtles. And only 1% of the hatchlings survive to breed as adults, which I think is sad and amazing at the same time because it shows you how delicate and sensitive they are. And they always return to lay their eggs at the same beach. So even though they might have traveled hundreds and hundreds of kilometers away on their journeys, they use this magnetic inner compass and the Earth's fields to come back to where their mother laid them. And if they have bad sense of direction like me, they follow the other females who they know are from their tribe and they come back to the beach that way, which I just love. So they're very special, and I worked on them specifically for like a year actually before I decided to change careers. So there's something about their energy that I think is magical.
Yeah, they are pretty special. Thanks for sharing that one. That's nice and interesting. You've got me thinking now about animals.
Well, also they're slow on land but fast in water, and I can really relate to that because in a lot of areas I seem a little backwards. But then in other areas, superhero. So I love this idea of the extremes.
Yep, bit of polarity. So you have met a lot of amazing people over your career journey. Can you tell me the most interesting person that you've ever met with and talked with?
This is the coolest question I've seen in such a long time. So I've had this very unusual life. For example, I used to serve chocolates to the Prime Minister, and I've met a lot of famous people through my pre-psychic work and my psychic work. But actually the most interesting person I know is my husband, which is why we're married and we have a business together, because I never know what's going to come out of his mouth. And it just never gets boring. And I just want to be with him so that I can just be constantly entertained. And we met on television. Our entire first interaction is actually filmed and on my website. We were on live TV. And he's just a mile a minute. And I couldn't imagine my life without him. As soon as we met, we believe we're twin flames and soulmates. Everything just took off. I started getting massive media coverage and taking my business, doing psychic work seriously. And he really is a fascinating guy.
And I'll find That's all right. I'll find the video and we can pop it in the show notes as well,
He's
so people
quite
can
hilarious
see.
because we're significantly younger and I'm wearing really huge boots, so he looks like a midget. But you can definitely see the sparks, and in the interview, which it was on a show, How to Read Your Lover's Hand, and he was the demonstration lover. You can actually see me say to him, your life changes from now. And he goes, yeah, I just got a new job. But when we look back, we're like, no, you just met your wife. So it is pretty cute. And he's definitely the most interesting person I've met.
I love it. That's fantastic to meet on a TV show.
Well, if you meet someone that interesting, you've got to hold on to them. Seriously, you can't just let them get away.
Absolutely. So I ask this of all people that come on the podcast. What is your number one self-care ritual?
Yeah, that was a bit challenging because I have different ones depending on what type of frantic it is. I actually have an article on safety nets and I have a checklist of what are my symptoms and what do I need to do. So it just sort of depends on what chaos has presented itself. One of my classic things I go into is I can't stop thinking. So it just keeps going like I've lost the remote control to the mental TV. So what I do is I get myself to the ocean as soon as I can and I dunk my head underwater. And that is the number one cure I found. I don't exactly know why. It's not the same as putting my head in the bath or under the shower, but there's something about the ocean. It's like returning home, and maybe it's linked to that whole sea turtle thing.
I like that. And
But it's
for
like
me,
it's like the ice bucket challenge alternative. And that's one of the reasons I moved to the Gold Coast, so I could dunk my head in more often and have better mental health. Yeah, one of the many reasons.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
That's okay.
So you have taken a complete 180-degree turn in your career, like from scientist to someone who's worked for the government, to the Australian government, the United Nations, and being a psychic. Can you tell us about this transition?
The best way to explain it is when I was a little girl and people would give me apples, people would eat the apples until the core and they would throw it away. And I would just keep chewing on the core until I found the seeds, and then I would chew the seeds to see if there was enough cyanide in them. So I'm just one of those people who wants to know the meaning of life. And in the beginning of my career, I thought I needed to save the planet. I later see that was coming from a wanting to change my family and make people like me, but I wanted to save the planet. I wanted to save the earth. So I did a lot of charity work. I worked for the Environment Department in Canberra, the United Nations Environment Program. I fundraised for all the major charities like Greenpeace and Oxfam and stuff. And I was just continuously sick. I mean, I was definitely making a lot of difference in the outer world, but I couldn't have a baby. I wasn't able to stay in a relationship. I was always really flat. And I just felt that I was sort of limping through my life purpose. And so it did take a lot of difficult things for me to change trajectory. For example, I was in the 2004 tsunami. I had a breakup of an engagement, a lot of painful things. But in so sort of going through those, I came to things like counseling and meditation and yoga. And I realized that instead of working things like litter prevention, where people change when they want to change, you know, you're just throwing yourself against a wall. You really have to clean up on the inside first and then project that outwards. So the psychic work was something I absolutely resisted. I did about 2,000 readings before I would use the word psychic. You can find all my early business cards. I said I do like palmistry and all this kind of stuff because I was dancing around it. I still had my day job and I didn't want to out myself. But once I started using that word psychic, I realized it was really important because it's women's work. It's witches' work. It's this goddess work that has been put underground for so long. For example, in Queensland, where I live, until 2002, it was illegal for me to charge for palm readings under the Vagrancy Act.
Wow.
It was illegal for me to run that business. So lucky I came in after that. But I actually just yesterday met one of the other psychics, Shay de Montfort, who helped to overturn that law. And when I read Anna Bly's hand, which I did at a book launch, I said to her, this law was really no good because it's pushed all this self-awareness work underground. It's made it seem dirty or wrong, but actually it's a path to kind of world peace. So I've just always been looking for the same thing, which is peace and balance. And I've just been trying all these things to hack it. And this is where I am. And it may not be where I stay. I've got a lot of other interests, but this is pretty cool stuff once you get into it.
Absolutely. And I mean, when we were speaking before, I said that pretty much after you'd reached out about the podcast and then we connected, I've really been aware of the numbers recently, just the multiple numbers showing up. And I know that this is a main body of your work, but there was also a transition. And you speak of, your journey from being quite stressed and an overthinker, and you recovered from an eating disorder. Like, how did you actually use the numbers and that pathway as a way to create more balance in your life?
Yeah, that's another really juicy question. So numbers appear to people who are skeptics and who require data. So that's why I love working in that area, because the people I meet are very similar. They're highly educated, they've had world experience, and they're not easily fooled. That's the type of person I can really respect and talk to. And so spirit essentially is using those numbers because nothing else worked. They tried dropping the feather, they tried giving you goosebumps, and you just went, oh, that's coincidental. But when they put a whole row of ones in front of you, you go, no, stop, reverse, halt. So I love the skeptical side of myself. It's just when that gets out of control, like I said, that's when I have to dunk my head underwater. And I still am quite easily stressed and overthinky, but I have created a fairly foolproof lifestyle where in order to have a business and the life I want, I need to stay aligned. Like, I've built my career now around actually walking my talk. And I ask people frequently to keep me honest and to give me that feedback, because I know it could save my life. So the way I recovered is I built a life where I couldn't cheat, where there wasn't any rocks to hide under. In my previous life as a fundraiser, I could go home and just go into denial and escapism. But now I work from home. People can walk in and see clearly whether, like I said, I'm walking my talk. And there's no underground bunker, in case you're wondering.
Oh, you're funny. And like you said before, you've got a rock solid awareness of different triggers, and then you've got antidotes to apply at any given time to really salve the soul, it seems. So
Yeah, I use my blogs as like little scrolls of healing. I was told repeatedly as a child I needed to be a doctor, and I did get to the interview stage, but I was talking to them about being a circus juggler, and I think they lost interest at some point. So that didn't happen. But often when people have an issue, I'll send them one of my blogs. I've got like 500 blogs on almost every topic, and I've got thousands more in my head. And it just kind of opens things up for when we do meet, or maybe it gets them into the vibration to go have that conversation with someone else. It just kind of jogs their memory that they're a spirit and they're totally capable of getting where they need to go. So I wanted to share a couple things, actually, because when you said, why did I transition from, UN work and stuff to being a psychic? That was really hard. I had a job that was incredibly well looked upon. Like in my field, that was the top of the top. And I was only 24 when I was at the United Nations. Average age of entry there's 37,
wow.
But there's a quote that all wars are started by someone who can't sit quietly in a room. And I was just constantly walking into bullying, politicking, exploitation. I was a whistleblower for exploitation of interns at the United Nations. So I'm not welcome there anymore. But it was really important to me to get the embassy involved and to say something and to talk about it in my blog, because you see it happen every day. People are like, oh, you want to get into this industry, you need to work for free. And you need to jump when I say jump. And it doesn't change. It's like a domestically violent relationship. It doesn't change. You start like that. It's going to be hard to raise your hand and ask for a raise later on. You need to start with good boundaries and understanding. So I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to create peace in myself and others, and I just kept looking, and this is where I am. And sorry, you said, how did I recover from the eating disorder? That's something I've thought about and I still think about, because it doesn't take much to tip me back into disordered nutrition. Basically, I had to stop cutting myself down to size. I had to stop shrinking from success. I had to stop diminishing and hiding myself, because I'm actually a big person. I'm 6 foot, I'm 5'11". In Chinese, I'm in the top 1% of women. So I've had a lot of jokes in my life that I wouldn't find a husband. I was not feminine. I shouldn't play basketball because I would get too tall. I mean, there was some really strange stuff, but you know, luckily I found a husband, and of course he is shorter than me, which is quite funny. But I literally was too big for people's expectations. So I've spent my whole life like this. And I have no doubt the eating disorder was partly me trying not to offend people. And so I had to stop swallowing my words. I had to start spitting out their opinions of me. And it's interesting that now I have a really big presence, and people know I'm coming before they even know of me. It's like, I can't explain it, but I just stopped hiding. And a lot of women with eating disorders who I've met, they have incredible leadership capabilities, but they won't fuel their rocket ship in case they accidentally launch into space and change the future of humanity. I see it all the time. And it's like, that's what I still do when I'm stressed. I eat just enough that I can function, but not so much that I am bright and creative and fertile and happy. I keep it just under, so that I don't have to make that decision. The decision's made for me by my own fatigue.
And, you know, that, I guess you spoke about fear of like putting yourself out into the world, and that often comes from something that's happened along the way. And yeah, it's so interesting that you shared that, because, you know, in our pre-chat, I even spoke of me having fears of putting stuff out into the world and not really knowing and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's interesting that you have crossed my path, Sarah. So we've just taken a little short break because, okay, so Sarah's just called me out on being a skeptic, and I'm putting my hand up and I am saying, although I do have spiritual inclinations, yes, I'm probably a wee bit skeptical about the power of universal principles, etc. And basically the video froze when I was admitting to fear. And I'm getting tingles on this one too. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, yep. The video totally froze, and Ziggy, Sarah's gorgeous little newborn, who's like 8 weeks old, also needed her support. And Ziggy has the ability to really tune into Sarah whenever he needs something and let her know what he needs. So we are regrouping and reconvening now, and calling out, you know, that fear of helping others or being seen. And it's probably the imposter syndrome, really, if you look at it, the shadow side of it. But then looking at the magical wonderment of just being your authentic self. And yeah, over to you, Sarah.
That was pretty funny, wasn't it? So I have a lot of articles about this, and there's plenty of video documentation, but Ziggy needed to feed the newborn at the other end of the house, and the whole internet went down. And it doesn't normally. So when I looked at it, I immediately thought it's probably Ziggy waking up and beaming me, "Mother, where is my booby?" And sure enough, Chris came in really meek, going, "Oh, I can't calm the baby." And so we took a little meal break. And then I said to Ziggy, "Okay, turn it back on." It came back on. And Chris didn't even touch the internet modem. But all people are capable of this kind of thing. If you concentrate your energy and you truly believe, and you have that strong physical vitality, many amazing things can happen, just like when mothers lift cars off their children. When you are truly focused on a particular outcome from a place of great love and self-care and awareness, almost always the universe comes to meet you with bells on. But there are a few ingredients. So that's kind of what we're talking about in this call, isn't it? So you were saying you're a little afraid of, getting out there. And I actually specialize in helping people who have that exact fear of sticking their neck out, which is another bad sea turtle joke. You know that saying that's like all those memes where the turtle only makes progress when it sticks its neck out. Yeah, that's definitely what's happening right now. So where were we? You were saying, how did I recover from my eating disorder? And I was saying I stopped swallowing my words. I started my blog. I started talking back. I allowed myself to be greater than my imagination could even conceive. And as a result, my business is really supportive of my lifestyle choices. And I believe it helps a lot of people to love themselves and love those people around them.
Yeah, it's very, very true. Your blog is amazing. When we were corresponding and you'd say, "Oh, you might like this." And I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting."
Here's something I prepared earlier.
And like you do forecasts for each year, and you think about themes, and like the joy of missing out. I actually really resonated with that, because like there's just so much pressure for business people to be online these days and to be on social media and keeping up with the Joneses, to kind of be seen and visible. And then it creates this this conflict internally. And yeah, it was interesting. I really resonated with that. And like people can tune in and like learn more about what's present. But I'd love if you could maybe talk about, for the skeptics out there, what are they missing out on?
Well, firstly, can I just go back one tick? So this year, 2021, it adds up to 5. 5 is activating the 5th chakra, which is the throat, which is literally the connection point. If you spell connection with N-E-C-K in the middle, it makes sense. Where we join our head and our heart, and we have an opportunity to try things we've never tried. So you've got a lot of people actually taking risks, especially after COVID last year, and wanting to keep their businesses and families going. They are willing to do what they thought was embarrassing or silly in order to get oxygen. So that's actually, for me, super exciting. Where you were going, what are people missing out on? That they don't. Can you just say that question one more time?
Yeah, so if people, they're maybe seeing signs and perceiving them as coincidences as opposed to direct synchronicities and like universal signs, if you are maybe closed to those and just seeing them as brushing them off, what's a person actually missing out on if they're not opening up to the universal signs?
Well, they're missing out on love, because there's a great book called The Science Delusion by Rupert Sheldrake, where they studied mothers and babies. And when you separate them, the mothers know when the babies are crying because their milk lets down, which is what I got with Ziggy. Intuition, psychic ability, it's a mother's love, a parent's love. It's kept humans alive and thriving for millions of years. And all people like I, do is we just focus the energy into specific parameters like sort of creating predictions and stuff, but it's literally a survival instinct that comes from a place of enormous caring. It can absolutely be cultivated. So they're missing out on that unconditional love that the planet and the world has for them. And interestingly, in that book, and also there's a book called Touching by Ashley Montague, which is more of a alternative schooling and healing book. Skeptics are often those who didn't receive that nurturing when they were born, whether it was during the pregnancy, during the birth, after birth. That's the absolute crucial time to build trust in the rest of humanity. And if you don't have that loving touch and connection, maybe your mum was sick, maybe she couldn't be there, maybe you were adopted, whatever, you do test everyone and everything that comes your way. And I can tell you, absolutely, I was the biggest skeptic. Like I said, it took me 2,000 readings to declare myself a psychic. I'm in an industry where people do a weekend course and say they're a psychic. And people see our ads and they don't know the difference. And that annoys the crap out of me. That's why I have a blog, so I can say, by the way, just so you know, this is what has actually happened behind the scenes. So what I'm suggesting is what they're missing out on is this connection that can never be taken away. And that spiritual freedom, I think, is the greatest freedom of all, because I've worked with many, many people who have money, millions, billions, whatever, people who are, athletes, Olympians, all kinds of like gifts. But at their core, if they don't feel that they can truly express their spirit, their passion, who they are as a soul in all its facets, they're not free and they're not truly content. They're restless. And like I said, they start wars because they can't sit quietly in a room. So what they're missing out on is spiritual freedom. And that's what I am so passionate about, is getting people connected again to that constant love frequency that's absolutely available. If you walk into the sun shines on you. It doesn't go, oh, you didn't do your homework, so you only get 50% sunshine today. It's not like humans. It doesn't, hold back because you didn't do your taxes or you yelled at your dog. So for me, it connects you back to your true nature, to Mother Nature, to the planet that has supported you every second, minute, day, week of your life. Like, I looked at my son recently when he was 1 day old, maybe 1 day old, and I'm 40. So I'm like, how much is that? I don't know, 14, 15, 16,000 days old. And I looked into his eyes and I thought, how good is my life? He's 1 day old. I'm 16,000 days older than him. I'm apparently supposed to know something, but I don't feel like I do. How beautiful is this world that we live in? So that pure joy you get from just being alive, that's what you're missing out on. Of course, there's other ways to get it. You don't have to just do numerology or psychic work, but it's one of the fastest things that works. Skeptics are the easiest to read. The hardest people to read are the ones who psychic shop and get reading after reading. Skeptics are the ones I get the highest hit rate with, because they don't believe it works. So they don't have all the different barriers and blocks, and I can get a clean reading off them the first time. And a lot of them, they've never seen a psychic. They have my reading and they're like, okay, I'm done. That's all I needed. Some of them actually don't want to come back because it was too accurate. I've actually got that as feedback. They're like, I kind of like the element of surprise.
Wow.
So skeptics are easier to read when you know what you're doing. I don't have a fear of skeptics. I've been on radio with skeptic challenges. However, sometimes they set up the challenges so you can't possibly win, and I don't participate in stuff like that. That's just, you already can see
unfair game.
Well, because you're psychic, you can already see they've got an outcome in mind, and they've what do you call it? They've tipped the odds in their favor. So I don't do that stuff.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I could talk for days. My batteries in my headphones are a low battery.
Okay, well, we better wind up. What were the other questions?
Hilarious. Have you got one tip if someone is listening to this podcast and they are thinking, oh, wow, I'm really resonating with Sarah's insights? What's one tip that someone can implement in their life now to then start tuning into the 1111 energy?
This is kind of embarrassing, but just go to my website.
That's all right.
SarahYip.com. And I used to pussyfoot around this and be like, you should meditate. You should go find a guru. Or I don't even use that word anymore. But seriously, just go to my website, go to find your life path, add your date of birth up on the calculator or in your head. Look at what chakras you're healing. I've got videos, I've got blogs, I've got classes. Almost all of it is free. And I don't really think it's free because you still have to spend your time and you have to pay with your fear. You said the word fear a lot of times today. I do anagram magic, so I take words apart and put them together again. Fear, F-E-A-R, is actually just fair rearranged, F-A-R-E. It's the price you pay for happiness. So if you've got a really big fear, sitting on the other side of that is absolute bliss and delight and ecstasy. So I get really excited now when I get scared, and I do things like shaking meditations and journaling and things, but I actually see it now as a big X marks the spot. Like, I need to go there. I need to do that thing. This is going to be awesome. The only caveat on that is if it's going to threaten my life. Then I'm like, okay, maybe not. I have 3 kids.
Yeah.
Seriously,
And the
just go to
husband
my
who's the
website,
most
have a
important
look.
person.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. And I'm sure he would be sad if I leapt off the cliff without a parachute. Although
And
he'd
you're
probably catch me because he would see it coming because he's also psychic. So we're a bit funny like that. We're like, oh, I got you a gift. Oh, I already know where it is. Oh, that's so annoying. That can be kind of irritating sometimes.
There wouldn't be much surprise, would there?
There still is, because a lot of people don't know that you can block someone from reading for you. So I could use my energy to overcome that block, but I have learned from experience and training not to do that. So what I'm saying is that you have free will, and even babies do, and even deceased people do. And if I'm doing their numbers or doing a reading and I get a block, like I feel foggy or I get their life path wrong over and over again, I stop and I say, they don't want to be read, or we need to ask politely, or yeah, there's something going on. And so a professional psychic will not override you. If you don't want to be read, they'll just give you your money back. That is what we're all trained to do, and that keeps it really clean. Because if you do overpower someone's free will, you may get an accurate reading, but they will never come back. They'll never trust a psychic again, and you've closed them to this incredible doorway. It's the wrong thing to do. That's why people need to come to this stuff of their own free will. They need to click on the website rather than me, turning up at their door and pushing it in their face. And yeah, seriously, have a look. And for some people, that look will turn into like 8 hours overnight. And for some people, it won't be for them because I use too many words, and maybe they'll find something else on YouTube or Insta. There's a lot of 1111 people like me in the world now. It's been a good 10 years since the portal opened 111111. So I'm not the only one, but I'm a good place to start because I've been around a long time and I've had, thousands, if not millions of people feedback. So what I've got on the website is really solid. It may not be glamorous, but it works.
You've got a wealth of information on there. And, you look at Seth Godin's blog, he's like a demigod of marketing, and his blog is
I studied him. Yeah, I studied him a lot. I read all his blogs for a long time, and he's got a similar frequency. He knows, there's this famous quote, what is it? The master has failed more times than the beginner has tried. And I just realized early on that actually by writing my blogs and sharing my secrets, it would actually give me a reputation, energy, and just confidence that I could never get by hoarding. Like, oh, you have to pay to know this and pay to know that. In the beginning, I wanted to do that. And even now people are like, you should make people pay for everything on your site. And I say they do. They pay with their time and their energy and their fear. And that goes into a big karmic account, which helps me with manifestation later on. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
And explaining that to people.
Goodwill is a currency. But you can't just live on goodwill. You still have to pay the rent. And I work again with a lot of spiritual people who are afraid to charge top rates, because I charge top rates because of my eating disorder, which requires me to eat expensive, delicious food in a way, because I'm gluten and dairy free and things like that. And I have kids. And most of all, I want to create an industry. I want to charge enough so that people come in and go, hey, I could do that. Even my husband's, he's made the switch from TV. He was like, how is that a job? How is what you do a job? And I'm like, seriously, come along. It's incredibly easy and incredibly difficult at the same time, because people always remember what you say, and we record everything on video and audio. So, don't show up if you're fake, because they will play it back to you, and you won't be able to stay in the industry. So that was a little bit of a ramble, but I hope it made some sense. Seriously, just go to my website and have a look. And if it's not for you, who knows, it might open something up, and you'll still find the next step on your journey.
Awesome. So I'll link in the show notes below. Do you have like one mantra or quote or affirmation that you use in your life as a guiding?
Yeah, I do. And I've had it since I was in high school. I was always obsessed with quotes, and I always was looking for the perfect quote. I had this idea that if I found the perfect quote, everyone would think I was smart and love me. This quote is from Oscar Wilde, the playwright, and the quote is, "Who being loved is poor." And that's my favorite quote. And there's another quote that's similar, which is, "If you have one true friend, you have more than your share." Ralph Waldo Emerson, I think it is. And I like those quotes because it reminds me that if I can love myself and be my best friend, that I have everything. And when you come from that place of everything, all the doors open, because when you work with someone, they know if you're just doing it for money, or if you're looking at the clock, or if you're going to try to sell them a product in 5 minutes. Because I worked in fundraising, you have to learn to read people in seconds, on the phone, in person. People can smell a rat. So you need to be the real deal in this industry. And that's why I love this industry. That's also why I hate it, because I can't, like I said, I can't hide. There's a part of me that would just love to censor everything and use filters. But at the same time, I know my life purpose is to reveal. I'm going to help a lot more people by showing up in my dressing gown. Can I tell one more story?
I'd love you to. I love your stories.
I have a lot of silly stories, but I started getting recognized in my hometown of Brisbane, which is one of the reasons I moved to the coast. So I read for thousands of people, and every now and then, obviously, they would bump into me, but it always was at the most inopportune times. So in an emotional healing workshop, when my whole face was covered in snot, someone came up and said, "Oh my God, it's you." And I'm like, "Who, what, where?" I'm like wiping my nose. I'm like, "Oh no." Of all the times, right? And the next time it was 8:55 on a Friday night. I had a workshop. I had to do some photocopying at Officeworks. It's like an office supply shop. And I thought, no one will see me. It's 8:55. No one's going to see me. So I'm just going to wear my dressing gown that smells like pee and has like baby vomit. And I wore that dressing gown, and I put my foot outside the car. Someone saw the sign on the back of my car, and she came straight up to the door going, "Oh my God, it's the numbers queen." And I'm trying to social distance, and this is like years ago, and there was no social distancing. So that's happened so many times now, being recognized in toilets and dark alleys, that I keep it real. So I went home that night actually, and I did a video on keeping it real, and I did it in my stinky dressing gown. I was like, "Here's the vomit." And I know for some people that's too much information, and those are the people who don't follow me. They follow people who look better on social media and don't have gray hair and stuff. But I've got loyalty amongst the people I want to be with. The people who want someone who is devoted and committed and loyal and really cares and keeps it real. So I just wanted to share that story because, like I said, if you can love yourself and be your own friend, that's the work. And it sounds easy, but it can take many, many lifetimes, because I do past life work as well. It can take many, many lifetimes. And even then, you can forget.
Oh, amen. You
So
are awesome.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. So I say to my babies and my children, my babies, my children, everyone, even in the womb, I'm like, "You're an infinite being, you're a soul, you're made of love, you're magical." I say this to my kids every day. And so then they do things like stuff up my internet. And I'm like, I know you're a magical soul, but could you please restore the connection because mummy hasn't finished yet. So yes, it's good to tell people they're awesome, but you also need to remind them that we have 3D needs as well.
That's true. Yeah. Sarah, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. And yeah, I'm so glad we connected. And I know that listeners.
You're beautiful. And I'm sorry I do interrupt a lot. I haven't had a lot of adult company since I had my baby.
I think you're doing an amazing job. You've like 8 weeks postnatal, just amazing, really.
Well, this work gives me energy. So it's kind of like food, you know, if you know the food's going to give you energy, you'll pay more for it, or you'll find it in that difficult to drive to Delhi or whatever. You know, it's worth it. This type of work keeps me alive, and what more could you ask for, really?
Amen to that. I mean,
it just makes me want to be here. That's
yeah,
why I
when you're
care about
living
work
purpose.
so much.
Yeah. I love it. It's awesome.
Thank you so much for choosing me and for listening. And thank you to everyone who is connecting to this call. I'm incredibly honored to be able to chat. And I just hope that it makes a difference.
I'm sure it will, because the intention's there, Sarah. So it's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Maren.
We trust that you enjoyed this episode of the Gut Mind Collective podcast. Be sure to catch us on your favourite pod player, Spotify, Apple, or Google. And you can join us over at thegutmindcollective.com. Goodbye for now.